Kemi Badenoch.
Mr. Speaker, we are staring down the barrel of a crisis that no serious government can ignore. The welfare system no longer works as it should. What was once a safety net has become a trap. A system designed to protect the most vulnerable is now encouraging dependency and dragging this country into deeper debt. Mr. Speaker, the welfare system is a crucial safety net for the poorest and the most vulnerable in our society. So I was quite surprised, Mr. Speaker, at the tone that the Secretary of State decided to take today. She thinks that she can stand there and get away with the fiction that all of this was caused by the last government. So let me refresh their memories, especially for those who were not here at the time. In 2010, we inherited 8% unemployment, and we brought it right down. The last Conservative government reformed welfare to introduce universal credit, and our reforms helped ensure that employment more than halved and was at a near record low. What have we seen since they came in? Unemployment has risen every single month that Labour came into office. Mr. Speaker, during our time, indeed 800 jobs were created for every day that we were in office. And at the same time, until the COVID pandemic, we kept spending under control, cutting the deficit every year. But COVID changed everything. It did. Now we face a new... Mr. Speaker, it is delightful to hear them laughing. I remember us sitting on that side of the House, and they were demanding that we spend more and more and more money. Thank God it was Conservatives who were there under COVID. Labour would have bankrupted the country. We face, Mr. Speaker, we face a new reality. Under this government, every single working day, 3,000 people move on to incapacity benefits. 3,000 every single day. That is a 50% increase from when we left office. A 50% increase. They have only been in power 1 year, Mr. Speaker. Imagine what it's going to be like after the next 4 years. A 50% increase, 3,000 people onto incapacity benefits every day. That is not normal, it is not sustainable, and it is not acceptable. Spending is spiralling under Labour, Mr. Speaker.
Will my right honourable friend give way?
Yes, I will.
Edward Lee.
My right honourable friend quite rightly mentions COVID, and I'm sure there's one thing that we can agree on. Unfortunately, before COVID, people were assessed much more often in person. And during COVID, that was stopped, understandably. And we have to get these in-person assessments going, and we have to get them going quickly. Sure, that's something we can all agree on.
Kemi Badenoch.
The Father of the House is absolutely right. This is something that we should all be able to agree on. But they're too busy trying to shift the blame instead of solving the problem. Let's talk about solving the problem, Mr. Speaker. We have 28 million working people propping up 28 million people not working. The rider is getting heavier than the horse. Health and disability benefits were £40 billion before COVID. By 2030, I'll give way in a moment, by 2030, on this government spending plans, they will hit £100 billion. I give way to the Right Honourable Lady.
I thank the Right Honourable Lady. I wonder if she could help the House. When was it, during the 14 years when the Conservatives were in power, was the time when the benefit system worked well?
Mr. Speaker, I will remind her of our inheritance. We took difficult... I will. In 2010, I said it before, I'll say it again, 8% unemployment down to 4%. Every single time Labour leaves office, they leave more people unemployed. The welfare system needs continual reform. We took difficult decisions and got universal credit through with so much opposition from them. We improved the system. That doesn't mean it can't be further improved, and we've offered to help. They don't want any help. They just want to make things worse. Mr. Speaker, by 2030, on this government spending plans, we will hit £100 billion on health and disability benefits alone. That is more than what we spend on defence. And this should make everyone in this House stop and think, because this bill does nothing to fix that problem, and that is why we cannot support it. The Conservative Party are the only party in this House urging restraint. And unless this House acts, they will bankrupt our children. They will bury the next generation under a mountain of borrowing and debt, and they will do it not because we had no choice, but because they lacked the courage to choose. A fundamental and serious programme to reform our welfare system is required, and this bill is not it. This bill is a fudge. And I feel sorry for the Right Honourable Lady. She looks as if she's being tortured. This is a rushed attempt to plug. We all know why this is happening. We all know why this is happening. I'll give way in a moment. We all know why this is happening. This is a rushed attempt to plug the Chancellor's fiscal hole. It is driven not by principle, but by panic. The changes were forced through not because they get more people into work, but because someone in 11 Downing Street made a mistake. It is clear that these changes were not designed to introduce fundamental reforms. How did we get here? Last year, at the Chancellor's first budget, she left herself no headroom. That same budget killed growth, meaning that unemployment has increased every month since Labour took office. This is a good time for me to remind the House again that every time Labour leave office, they do so with unemployment higher than when they came in. And they are doing it again. They are doing it again. I'll give way to the Right Honourable Gentleman first.
I'm very grateful for her giving way. I'm sure that she would not want an inaccurate statement to stand on the record. Unemployment fell under just two 20th century governments, the first Labour government and the 1970 government of Ted Heath. Now, I know that she's repeating a standard Conservative Party message, but it is a really cynical and silly misuse of statistics.
The the honourable gentleman is simply wrong. He needs to get an education and look at the facts. I give way to my right honourable friend.
Does my right honourable friend agree with me that the chief architect of the fiasco which people with disabilities are facing today, and which every member of the Labour Party opposite is facing today, the chief architect is the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and the fact that she is not here to face up and take responsibility is all we need to know about her and those on the front bench opposite.
My right honourable friend is quite right. This is a fiasco, and it is the Chancellor's fault. She marches them up and down the hill all the time. They're the ones who have to face their constituents. We are trying to help get a welfare system under control and get people into work. Yes. And my right honourable friend, he is right to raise the Chancellor. He's right to raise the Chancellor because when that economic outlook worsened this spring, she chose to force through these changes to welfare, designed not to reform, not to improve the system, but to address a hole in her numbers. These changes were rushed for Rachel, as we say, Mr. Speaker. And I watched when she made that budget. It was quite clear she had no idea of the consequences of her decision. But the country should not have to pay for the mess she has made, and neither should disabled people. Even with these changes in this bill, welfare spending would still be billions higher at the end of the Parliament. Slowing down how much you increase spending is not a cut. And despite... I'll give way on that point.
I thank her for giving way. I don't know about the rest of the House, but I'm slightly baffled here. The opposition has made a virtue of her blank slate and her blank sheet of paper. But is she in favour of more or less? Is she in favour of the actions of her government or not? Because this complete lack of taking responsibility is exactly what got us into this mess in the first place.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not surprised he's baffled because he's clearly not listening to what I'm saying. We have been very, very clear. We had three conditions. We've been very, very clear that we want to see the welfare budget come down. But I'll make some progress. Even with these changes in this bill, Mr. Speaker, welfare spending is still going to be higher by billions at the end of this Parliament. This is not a cut. Slowing down an increase is not a cut. We need to get this under control. But despite the obvious, I will make some progress. Despite the obvious flaws in this bill, Mr. Speaker, we offered to support benefit changes in the national interest. The honourable gentleman asked a question. I will answer it very clearly here for those who have not been paying attention. We agreed to support the government if they could make three simple commitments, not unachievable or unreasonable commitments. That first, they had to cut the overall welfare bill because we are spending far too much already. Second, if they would get more people into work. And third, if they would stand by the Chancellor's own commitment, her own commitment, that with taxes at a record level, because of her choices, she wouldn't be coming back for more tax rises. What did we get from the government? A sneery response indicating that they could manage on their own. How's that going? And what happened instead was that the number of MPs opposed to this bill grew ever larger until the inevitable U-turn finally came. Announced by press release dispatched after midnight, a panic letter setting out that the reforms had been gutted, and now the bill is more incoherent than it was at the beginning. I give way.
I thank the Right Honourable Lady for giving way. Just to reflect on the record of the previous government, as of 2024, approximately 24% of the UK population, nearly 16 million people, were living in poverty. Between 2019 to 22-23, an additional 2.1 million people were living in poverty. And in the year until April 2024, before the Labour government came into power, 4.45 million, or 31% of children in the UK, were living in relative poverty. Will the Right Honourable Lady agree with me that the previous Tory government failed the majority of the population, including disabled people and children?
No, I definitely will not agree with him. He's talking about relative poverty figures, and the fact is the best way to get people out of poverty is into work, something we did again and again and again. Mr. Speaker, the bill is more incoherent now than it was right at the beginning. It doesn't do the job at all. Reforms, which were not enough in the first place, will only now cut £2 billion from a ballooning budget instead of £5 billion. And they will create a new welfare trap and a two-tier welfare system. Right up until the last moment, the government kept pushing and pushing, ruling out changes, sending their poor, weary ministers and ambitious backbench bootlickers out onto the airwaves. And then, as we have seen before, Mr. Speaker, at the last moment, I say to them, they abandon you. They abandon you after all of that. They have been hung out to dry, Mr. Speaker. The government does not care how it has made their backbenchers look. And it's not the first time. Week after week, the Right Honourable Lady was sent here to say with a straight face that she was right to cut the winter fuel payments, that there would be no turning back, that the country's finances would simply collapse if she didn't take pensioners' fuel money and give it to the trade unions. And her backbenchers sucked that one up. They muttered and they grumbled, but each of them went back and told their constituents that the winter fuel payments were being confiscated to fix the foundations. And only once pensioners had sat in the cold all winter and the Chancellor had tanked the economy and up and down the country Labour MPs had the door slammed in their face did they finally accept that it was a mistake. This time, when asked to line up behind a bill that cuts money from older disabled people with physical disabilities, a bill that, according to their own modelling, gets no one into work, funnily enough, lots of them didn't fancy another go. Perhaps they will think twice next time the Chancellor comes to them with a bad idea. Yes, I will give way.
I thank the Leader of the Opposition for giving way. The Prime Minister's inability to control his backbenchers has meant that the Chancellor now has to find an extra £2.5 billion to fill the savings that she's claiming she's got. Can the Leader of the Opposition guess how she might raise that money?
The fact, I thank my honourable friend for that question, the fact that they have refused not to commit to tax rises means that it's probably inevitable. But it is quite clear that Labour MPs will surely feel emboldened to push for more unaffordable changes to our welfare system, including to the two-child benefit cap. So let's be clear. Part of the reason these plans have been so rushed and badly thought through is because of the mess the Chancellor has made. This is an attempt to find the quickest and crudest savings possible, to plug the hole she has created in the public finances, but the Chancellor is not the only one to blame. It beggars belief that the Labour Party came into office after 14 years in opposition with absolutely no serious plan for reforming welfare. What were they doing all that time? What were they doing? The welfare bill is already totally unsustainable, and it is only getting worse, Mr. Speaker. It is only getting worse. As I said, health and... I'll give way to the Honourable...
And as one of the Labour backbenchers who will be supporting the government, can I just point out there's not that many backbenchers behind her, and they get fewer every week. But perhaps, given what she's just said, she could tell us She says she wants to cut further from the budget of the DWP.
Where?
What would she cut? What exactly would she do?
We cut unemployment. Yes, Mr. Speaker. As I was saying, Mr. Speaker, health and disability benefits are forecast to rise to £100 billion. That will mean £1 in every £4 raised in income tax will be paying for these benefits. This is not sustainable. Until the pandemic, we on this side of the House had spent years bringing down the benefits bill and getting people back into work, including millions of disabled people. Talent, energy, ingenuity, these are not confined to those in perfect health. If we want to afford public services, improve people's lives and compete globally, we cannot consign so many people to a life out of work. We've got to get them into work. So I do believe that the whole House agrees the system needs change. I think we may disagree on what exactly that change looks like, but what we have in front of us today is just a big mess. I give way to my right honourable
friend. The Secretary of State was right. Welfare reform is tough, and governments tend to duck the issue, with notable exceptions like Ramadan friend for Stringford and Woodford. But if you are going to change welfare radically, you surely review the options and then decide which ones to take. By contrast, this government's decided on its option and is then going to review to think what it might have done. Surely that's not the right way to run welfare or any part of government.
Spot on, John.
My right honourable friend makes an excellent point. I have nothing further to add. He said it just as well as it possibly could have been said. So, Mr. Speaker, the whole House agreed that the system needs to change one way or another. But what we have in front of us today is a big mess. It's neither fish nor fowl. And because of their hasty concessions, we now have a two-tier benefit system, under which people already on benefits will be incentivised to keep them. And there are other issues. Why, for instance, should someone diagnosed with Parkinson's after November 2026 receive a lower payment than someone diagnosed a month prior? We need to fix a whole load of problems. For instance, we need to filter out people who are gaming the system. We need to redesign the system so that genuinely disabled people do not find it so Kafkaesque. And we need a fundamental rethink about who we can afford to support and why. 1 in 4 people in this country, Mr. Speaker, now self-report as disabled. This is an extraordinary state of affairs. We clearly cannot afford to support all of them. We should focus that support on those with the greatest need. Many people with disabilities live full and independent lives, contributing to society. Research published by the Centre for Social Justice last week shows that you could save up to £9 billion by restricting benefits for lower-level mental health challenges such as anxiety. So members opposite ask what we would change. That's one of the things we would change. And findings published by the Taxpayers Alliance today shows that people with conditions that include acne and food intolerance are getting benefits and getting entitlements like Motability. We already know that the impact assessments for this bill show that it will get no one into work. Those are not my impact assessments, those are their impact assessments, so the government should think again, and we will support them to do so. We support replacing remote or online assessments for claimants with face-to-face assessments. That simple change alone could dramatically reduce the number of new claimants. And before the last election, we outlined reforms that the new government rejected out of hand. Will the Secretary of State return to them? Because these changes we are discussing today are rushed and confused. And rather than the fundamental reforms which we so badly need, we have been presented with a botched package of changes, watered down and carved apart in the face of backbench pressure. There is no way we can back this. So instead of allowing her backbenchers to dictate her policy, the Secretary of State should go back to the drawing board, cut the overall bill, get people into work and eliminate the need for new tax rises. That's a programme that we will support in the national interest.